Welcome back, and thank you for listening to Barely Even Here. I'm actually very excited for this episode, and I think it's going to be a good one. Sorry if my voice doesn't sound like it, but I don't usually record this early in the morning. I have a lot to do today, which is a good thing. It's a good thing to have a full day. But I may sound a little groggy, and I'm still drinking my coffee. So between the low voice and sips of coffee, I hope you could bear with me. Oh man, so this is going to seem a little silly to some people, but we passed 100 followers on Facebook. Hooray! That's, I need to work on getting a soundboard or some way to do little sounds, because that would be cool. But like, I don't know how many of you played Halo, but you get one of the skulls and it turns on this feature where you pop a grunt in the head and it like pops confetti out and it goes, yay! Which would be perfect. That's what went through my mind. But 100 followers on Facebook is like nothing to most people. It might as well be 4. but for me, I'm really excited because I'm horrible with social media. I'm on it specifically to connect and stay connected with people that I care about. I'm not a huge fan of meeting new people. I'm not saying that I'm against it. It's just, I don't put too much stock into new people. It may sound a little arrogant to say, but I like to keep my circle small. It's very hard for me to let my guard down when it comes to new people. That's something that I'm working on. But social media, me personally, I don't think it's the best place to meet new people, because people are hard enough to get the truth out of in real life. Now imagine over the internet. You don't have to imagine it. We all know. We've all been privy to things like that. But 100 followers on Facebook, and that makes me feel pretty good. People are responding. It's really cool. Hey, speaking of Facebook and podcast, I'm gonna talk a little shit here for a little bit. So even though I use Buzzsprout, that's my preferred method of getting this out there. There is a Facebook community group for Buzzsprout. I'm not sure if it's official, but it's like the Buzzsprout community Facebook group. And man, I got myself a little warning on there. They said I violated the guidelines, and they even shared a copy of the guidelines with me. And no, I didn't. Fucking admins, dude. They're such tryhards for the most part. I cannot stand admins. You give somebody, and it's a proven fact, you give somebody, most people, you give them the slightest bit of control or a sense of authority, and they're going to abuse it in some way. And I got abused. I got abused by the Buzzsprout community group. It was just really silly because I was looking for content and I wanted to it says that it's a community, right? So I went to engage, and I was up front and I said that I was content farming. And I had asked a question, and not much longer afterwards, they hit me with a warning and said that I couldn't do that. You can't content farm per our rules or guidelines or whatever. And in the copy that they sent me of the guidelines, nowhere in there does it say you can't content farm. And they said, this platform is for growing together, not trying to grow your specific podcast, which I felt that just seems so shitty, because that's what everybody's doing. That's why people are asking these questions. When someone's on there, what camera should I buy? What mic should I buy? What software should I use? I mean, that's what you're doing. You're directly going there to get help to further your own podcast, to grow your own podcast. And the thing is, I think maybe they thought I was doing like a view for view or sub for sub kind of thing, because I asked my question, and I do the same thing on my personal page. I'll ask questions and then say, hey, I've even mentioned it on here a few times actually, that when you respond, whether it's by email or on any of the social medias, comments on the YouTube page, anything like that, that you could get featured on the show. Like, I'm not sponsored or anything like that. It's just me giving a shout out where shout outs do. So I had put that, if you answer the question, I'd be really happy to shout out your podcast for you. Yeah, that's a no-no apparently. But here's the thing. It's called a community, right? If it was a community and I grew strawberries and somebody sold strawberry pie, would that not work out? Would that not be synergy if I gave them strawberries and they'd throw me a strawberry pie every now and then? Maybe a strawberry shortcake. Isn't that how a community works? I don't know. I'm not going to harp on it. I just thought that was ridiculous. People just abusing their authority or the illusion of authority. But other than that, I'm very excited to have hit. Now I think it's actually at 103. We have 103 followers on Facebook, maybe 102. I turn everything on airplane mode, so I can't tell right now if it's gone up at all. I don't want to be distracted. I don't want to have things binging and vibrating and doing everything else while I'm trying to record. Maybe in the future it won't be that big a deal, but for right now, I like to keep it personal. You and me, baby. You and me. Man, and people are being really responsive to things. That's making me feel really good about it. I ask questions and people answer, or they're sharing experiences, or, I'll post a picture or something and people are really engaged and they're talking about it and they're reacting to it and the stories and the reels. And it's a really good feeling because on my own social media, I'm terrible at that. So I don't expect a lot of reaction or feedback, but it seems that the podcast page is doing a lot better than I am in real life. So that's good. That's what we're aiming for. It's a really good feeling, and it's cool to get something back, because just doing this, even the growth is pretty slow, which I expected. I'm not having any huge dreams or aspirations that are unrealistic. It's actually moving a lot faster than I expected it to, but it comes to a point to where it's kind of at a crawl, and I'm not even discouraged at that. It's neat that there's over 50 downloads in Buzzsprout. It's neat that there's over 50 views on YouTube. It's nice to me that we have 100 followers on Facebook. It feels good to me. It feels like I'm getting something out of it. I'm not getting paid. I have no sponsors, anything like that. But this basically started out as an audio journal for me, and to know that people are interested and that I'm making the connections, that's exactly what I wanted to begin with. So thank you all so much for supporting the show, and thank you so much in engaging. And on that note, I actually want to get to the question that I had asked that people had responded to. And I asked, what's your biggest fear on the Facebook page? And a really good friend of mine, Robin Waltz, I've known her my whole life. It's really cool to think back on how long you've known people. And I'm 35 years old, and I've known her like my whole life. Like, I grew up with her kids, and now her kids are having kids, and it's really neat. But she replied, and again, the question was, what's your greatest fear? And there's not going to be any judgment in this. People have different beliefs, and we're going to respect that. But her fear is that people I love and family die without knowing Jesus as Lord and Savior. We only get one chance. Now, I feel like that's a valid fear. Okay. And again, we're not here to judge people's beliefs or anything like that. She is an outstanding Christian woman. She's a very devout Christian. I've known her my whole life. Back when I was a kid, we all went to the same church and everything. I myself, I am not a religious person, but again, we are not going to judge. I'm sorry that I keep repeating that. I just want people to understand that that's not what we're doing here. But I'll read it again since I got a little sidetracked. Robin's biggest fear is that people that she loves and her family will die without knowing Jesus, and that we only get one chance at it. And I find that very valid, because if you are devout in your faith, to know in your heart that you're at the end of it, at the end of your life, you're going to have to leave everybody behind. But in your faith, you believe that there is an opportunity to be reunited after the fact, in the afterlife. Heaven, essentially, or hell. So I can imagine how scary that would be. And honestly, I remember that back, when I was religious, when I was younger, I was Christian. I believe it was non-denominational. I can't remember. I know we were Baptist there for a while. We kind of bounced around. But to think, like, man, what if so-and-so dies and they go to hell because they weren't Christian? That's pretty scary to think about. So not only will you don't have the opportunity to ever see that person you care about again, but now they're in this horrible, awful place for all eternity. That's a huge fear. That's very valid. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Cheyenne J. Snow says that something happening to my kids is her greatest fear. Something happening to her kids. And I think the majority of the planet would agree there. That's that's something that goes through my mind as a parent every day. And I had actually talked about intrusive thoughts. It may have been on the last episode, but I sometimes get intrusive thoughts, and I have had thoughts of horrible, awful things happening to my daughter. And again, they're intrusive. You can't control these thoughts. And sometimes they're just so vivid that you almost have to shake them off. And I can't imagine what it's like to lose a child, be it by them getting lost, or an abduction, or, any sort of death. Natural causes, let's say some sort of illness, or even a horrible accident, would be more gentle than someone doing something to your child. I don't think I'd be able to go on if anything like that happened to my daughter. I'm not sure how I'd handle it if it happened to any of my friends' kids either. We're all very close. And that's, that one's heavy. That is a very heavy one. And it's also very, very valid. I'm going to move on to the next one because I could talk all day about that, and I don't want to. It's horrible. It's very sad. Ashley Smith, who is engaged, I believe, to a good buddy of mine, Kevin Hood. I don't know if any of you out there are much gamers, but they had a crew they were running for a while there. It was 13 LG, because the 13 looks like a B, so it was like Bad Luck Gaming. They're really good people. I've known them for a while. But Ashley says being alone, again, a very valid fear, which I should probably just stop saying, because if I happen to not say it on one person's, was mine not valid? But being alone, I think, is a very relatable fear. Not just in the sense that it's uncomfortable, but being alone can be scary for some people. Some people prefer to be alone. I know maybe some of you are like, oh, that's not a fear. I like being alone. That's cool for you. But for a lot of people, they really need the emotional connection of other people in some way, shape, or form. I've known people that have They do incredibly virtuous things and go out of their way to help others because of that, because they're afraid to be alone and they want to share something with somebody, whether it's, they're really big on donating, spending their time at restaurants, just sitting there drinking coffee to build these relationships with, the staff and things like that. I've also known people that do very detrimental things because they don't want to be alone. A lot of times promiscuous behavior has a lot to do with a fear of being alone. They may be afraid of commitment, but they're even more afraid of being alone. They want to feel accepted. They want to feel like they belong somewhere. Some people, it's drugs, gangs. You look at gang members. That's where most of that comes from. They tell these usually young kids that it's a brotherhood and we take care of each other and you'll never have to be alone and you won't have to struggle, which is bullshit. We all know it's bullshit. And if there's any gang members listening, sorry to be the one to tell you this way, but it's bullshit. It's always bullshit because you will get rolled over on in a second. So see, it's very detrimental behavior sometimes because people are so afraid to be alone. There's other people that are equally afraid of being around people, but also they're equally afraid of being around people as they are of being alone. So they will spend a lot of their time online in chat rooms or VR, or I guess it's a VR chat room. But they'll do things like that because they don't want to be alone, but they're also terrified to be around other people. I've known people like that. Even if they don't outright say that, you could tell by their behavior that that's what it is. That sounds judgmental, but this isn't someone that I just barely know. It's someone that I know very, very well. And they're a very good person, but to me it feels like that's what it is. They're equally afraid of going out and being around people as they are of being alone. So they find ways online usually to cope with that, and it's working. If it's keeping you happy and elevated, then I don't think there's anything wrong with it. All right, let's move on to the next one. Grendel, man. Grendel's a character. He's an awesome guy. I've known him for a really long time. He's and if any of you are familiar with the story of Beowulf, the name alone will ring a bell. But Grendel is he's a DJ. He's a man of many talents, but he travels around. He's an awesome DJ. He does all types of events and he's great at what he does. But he says, and this surprised me because one, he's a real character. He's like that uncle that's just everything's a joke. Sometimes you can't tell when they're being serious or not. But he's a lot like that guy. But this one surprised me. That I'm not good enough. He says that his biggest fear is that he's not good enough. And man, that kind of shook me when I read that, because he doesn't come off as a type of person that could give a fireman's fuck if what people think about him. And I share that. I wouldn't say it's my greatest fear. I'm not sure it's a fear, but it's definitely something that my anxiety takes me to. And I think that's one of the reasons I had such a hard time in this last breakup, was because I put her up really, really high in my heart and my mind. But then to just be kind of left on the sidelines like that, it makes you feel like you're not enough. Not just that type of situation, but other things. There are people that have a really hard time because they love sports. They could tell you everything about sports, and maybe they want to make their father proud, and it's not just men anymore. There are women that push their kids just as hard as fathers do when it comes to sports. And sometimes that people just have to make that their whole lives because they have to be the best. And not even just the best. They have to be good enough. If that makes any sense. Good enough to where it's not just making the team. It's not just getting the girl. It's not just landing that trick at the skate park. It's not just learning guitar. Is this making sense? It's not just getting through the door. It's what you can do in the room. That's my perspective. I can't tell you Grindel's perspective, but not being good enough is an extremely valid fear that I think a lot of people struggle with that. They need to be good enough for themselves, good enough for their parents, good enough for their significant other, their friends, strangers, co-workers, bosses. It's a tough world, and society has kind of built this almost stencil that you need to be able to fit in so it can be filled in. And if you seem like some sort of an outcast or anything like that, it's very easy to be ignored or pushed aside, which leads you right back into being alone. And yeah, that's a really, really good one. And it surprised me. If you know Grindel, or if you know anybody like Grindel, that really surprised me that was his. But Grindel, you're definitely good enough, man. I think you're a great guy. You're terrific. And we're going to move on. Oh, man. Here's another really good friend of mine, Morgan Vogel. That's such an awesome name. Her name's Morningbird in German. I think that's really awesome. One day it clicked because I didn't know her last name. I knew her name was Morgan, or Morgan, which I knew was morning in German, but I didn't know that her last name was Vogel until I think maybe we added each other on social media. It's like, oh shit, your name's Morningbird? That's neat. That's a cool name. All right. Oh, and a few episodes back, I was talking about how my ex and I had COVID together, and my friend and his girlfriend were getting us groceries and helping us out. This is her. So thanks again, Morgan. But her biggest fear is that she'll end up homeless and no one will know. That's horrifying. I'll end up homeless and no one will know. Man, I actually have a lot of experience with that. When I was 15 or 16, without any real say in it, I was packed up and moved to Georgia with my mom. I didn't want to. I had a girlfriend at the time. I had really, really good friends, and now everything was just gone. And I'm moving to this place where I don't know anybody. I was out of school, so it's not like I could meet people. And I was just stuck in the house all the time. I went through an extreme bout of depression. And I begged my mom to send me back. I could live with my sister, this and that. And I did, and I'm sorry, I love her, but she was not a very great caregiver. I don't think she was prepared for it. There was a point in time where me at 17 years old, I was the only one in the entire house working, taking care of my older sister, her fiance, and another buddy of mine that was living with us. I was the only one working in the house, supporting a house of 4 people at 17 years old. Did something stupid, went and messed around in an abandoned house, or what I thought was an abandoned house, because me and some buddies had been going there for years, and we'd smoke pot and bring girls sometimes, or we used to shoot these little home movies, usually about zombies or space ninjas, stuff like that. And got in some trouble for being out there, took my licks, and I have a completely clean record. I own guns. I could work for the government if I want to. But it caused all of us to have to split ways, and then I was on my own. I was actually essentially homeless for many years until, probably about 4 or 5 years. I couch surfed around. To this day, I make it a point not to burn bridges because you never know when you may need help. And I try to help people as much as I possibly can to pay it forward. And if I ever get rich, I actually remember every single person who ever took me in and let me sleep on their couch or spare room or garage or anything like that. I was never homeless in the sense where I was living under a bridge. The closest I got was in the little, I'll call it a duplex. It was projects, but the place where we were living when I was the only one working with the four of us, my landlady was a right. Oh man, I really don't want to say the C word until this episode's after 20 episodes. Until this, when this show is after 20 episodes, I'll start cursing the way that I feel comfortable cursing. But for right now, I don't want to scare anybody off. So she was a right bitch. We'll say bitch for now. And even though I was the one that was giving her the rent checks every month, she said that since I was only 17, I wasn't old enough to be on the lease, changed the locks, and my dog was still in the house. So I broke in to get my dog. But there was a little storage in they had these carports, right? And under each carport, you had a little storage space, which is about the size of a small walk-in closet. And I slept in there for a couple of nights until one of my best friend's parents took me in, let me stay there, even though he wasn't living there at the time. That was really cool, which was also the first time I saw Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It just really, really hit. But being homeless isn't a joke, man. And I can see how easy it is for people to fall into that. It's horrifying, man. Rent is crazy. When you look at how much rent is compared to how much minimum wage is, it doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes any sense anymore. And it's far too easy for people to lose their homes. It's far too easy for people to end up on the streets. And it's even easier for people to stay there. And I used to live in this mindset of, well, there's things you could do, because I have had an insane amount of jobs. And I know personally that there's work to have. You can get work. That's not the issue anymore. The issue isn't whether or not a person's willing to work. The issue is whether or not the people who hire people are willing to pay a living wage. That's the issue. The issue is that 3 bags of groceries cost you $60 to $80. And 3 little HEB bags cost you $60 to $80 for basic necessities. For a very small household, I can't imagine like having a large family. It's disgusting. It really is, and something needs to be done about it. That's a whole episode in itself. Not everybody living on the street is a drug addict, you know? And that's a very stupid way that I used to view the world. Was, oh, well, they did something to put themselves there. And I hate myself for it sometimes. A lot of the ways that I used to think. Like, what a disgusting, horrible mind I used to have, to think that, oh, well, if they're homeless, then they did something. That's on them. When every single month where I am, full disclosure, is a struggle to keep my house. And I work. And to be honest with you, one of the things that I'm doing today, when I said I had a busy job, is I have an interview for a second job, because I have to have it. Because my little 2-bedroom house that's under 1,000 square feet cost me $1,500 a month to live in. That's before groceries. That's before gas. That's before utilities. That's before internet. That's before any inconvenient little thing that pops up in between. And God forbid I fall down and break an arm because I can't afford medical insurance. So that's where we are. And thank you, Morgan, for sharing that one, because that is an extremely valid fear. And I think more people nowadays are having to face that panic for no reason. People working full-time jobs are now having to face losing their house or have lost their house. I actually saw this little documentary on YouTube about people that Disney screwed over, and now they're living in these old resorts that used to be banging resorts that people would come and stay in from all over the world. Well, they've laid off so many people. I actually, it was Disney World. It's in Florida. And now all these ex-employees are staying in these what used to be resorts as like pay by the week motels, and they have their whole families smashed into them. A lot of them are living in their cars. It's really messed up and scary. And I've lost my jobs. There's been jobs that I've lost for no reason at all. Maybe they're downsizing. Maybe they didn't like me. Maybe sometimes they just close the business down. But thank you, Morgan, for that question, for that answer. That's extremely valid. Sarah Davila, which is they do awesome barbecue here in Seguin. They're very big. You've probably seen them on a couple of cooking shows also. They're really great people. She says she actually has two, which is cool. She says a house fire, which, oh my God, I couldn't imagine waking up in the middle of the night. A house fire? Have you seen those videos of how fast Christmas trees go up, dry Christmas trees? It's seconds, and you might as well just have a full-on uncovered furnace in your living room. Just blasting flames like a forge. If you have a live tree this year for this season, water it. Don't even just water it. I would honestly mist the leaves and everything if you're going to have lights on it. Keep that motherfucker wet. Go after this video and watch videos of Christmas tree fires. Just look up Christmas tree fires, and they have a little counter, and in seconds, I'm literally like a furnace, like a forge inside of the house, just blasting flames. Crazy hot flames. Now, your whole family's asleep. You leave the tree on, and I'm sorry. But that's where it's going to be. And not even just that, man. There's horrible accidental electric fires that just randomly happen, or somebody falls asleep with a candle on, and even though it's in a safe space, there's just, and see, this is my mind because of my anxiety and stuff, but sometimes when you blow a candle out or a candle burns out, the wick is very brittle and a piece will kind of drift off like a little ember from it. That's all it takes sometimes. Just these freak accidents where it's just that smallest little thing sits there and it happens to be catching enough air, and that sets something on fire, and that sets something else on fire, and that sets something else on fire. It's horrifying. That's a very valid fear, and I'm not sure if she's gone through that or known anybody who has gone through it. Oh, as a matter of fact, I know that she knows somebody who does, because I know somebody who has gone through it. I had a really close friend whose grandmother died in a house fire. It was extremely sad, and it was the only good thing to come out of that was the fact that he and his mom weren't there, because I think they were living there at the time, or they were spending a lot of time there, and they happened to not be there when it happened, and his grandmother died in that fire, and he wrote a song about it called 2 Years. And dang it, I guess I should say who it was right now. His name is Conway the Whale. Please go follow him. His music's incredible. He's been doing it for way longer than I've known him, and that's a long time. But he wrote a song called 2 Years about a house fire that took everything that they own. Oh, they were living there because, everything they had was gone, including their grandma. So it was extremely sad. House fires are no joke. And her second one is the dark outside when I can't see what's close by. That is a fear that is in our DNA. And you're definitely in tune with something in you, because that is an age-old primal fear. To be afraid of being outside in the dark. I was lucky enough to get to experience a lot of that as a kid. So it's not much of a fear for me anymore, but I remember like the first time going camping or the first time doing something outside, like in the woods at night. That's horrifying. It is a very primal, different kind of fear. I was lucky enough that I didn't have a dad, but I had uncles who were very much outdoorsmen. That'd wake you up at 3 a.m. to go set trout lines, to go catch fish, or to go fish, or to check traps, or just to go out and camp. Also had a brother-in-law who's a very big outdoorsman. And when I say very big, I mean big. Like 6'7", 375 pounds. He's a big dude. But yeah, that is a very primal fear. There's so much lore, fiction, nonfiction, creepypastas, analog horror that's specifically about being outside in the dark, in the woods. I can't tell you how thankful I am for the engagement. These were awesome responses. I feel a little more connected to you. Some of these really surprised me. Like, really, really surprised me. You ready to hear mine? I don't say this to try to sound like an edgelord or anything, but I never really had any phobias. I'm not afraid of heights. I know my limits when it comes to things. I'm not afraid of spiders or clowns or any of that. But I realized years ago that I do actually have a phobia, and it's radiation. I have an irrational fear of radiation. I still haven't seen Oppenheimer yet. I don't know why. I'm dying to see it. I love Chris Nolan. I don't think it has anything to do with my fear, but radiation is just so terrifying. And I know that there are different types of radiation, and we get radiation from the sun, and things emit radiation, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about harmful radioactive waves, specifically harmful radioactive material. You may not know this, but there's a man named Bob Lazar who came out and had a bunch of evidence about UFOs and extraterrestrials and stuff. And here's the kicker. Someone tried to assassinate him and his, I think, fiance at the time by putting a tiny piece of uranium in his house. And she died of a mysterious cancer, and he was diagnosed with it. And they found that little piece of uranium. All it took was this tiny, tiny little piece of irradiated material, and it was about to kill 2 people. That is a very, very small scale of what could happen. There's another story about this kid back in the 80s where you could buy these uranium kits, like these chemistry sets, and he exposed his entire neighborhood to it. And you don't know. That's what's horrifying to me about it, is you don't know. You can't see it. You can't smell it. Well, you can see it if it's a big enough dose of it, because there was this Japanese man who was exposed to a crazy amount of it, and they kept him alive for like 83 days, and he was a corpse. He was dead at a genetic level. It tore his genes apart. It was a flash of blue light, and then he just started to decay over days and days and days, and he was dead. But they would massage his heart and kept him doped up so that they could run experiments on him, and all those doctors and everybody got in a lot of trouble by the Japanese government. Check that out. Look it up. It's horrifying. Radiation really scares the shit out of me. Stopped at Whataburger one time. Parked right near the door. It's really close. And a truck happened to be parked right next to me. And I looked over, and it's got a radioactive sticker on it. And I went to the one all the way across town, and it took me a couple days to come down from the paranoia of if maybe we would have been exposed to it. Because if you are, you won't know it until you do, and then it's usually too late. But radiation freaks me out. I watched this documentary called, I think it was White Light, Black Smoke. I think that's what it was called. It might have been called White Light, Black Rain. I don't know why I want to say rain, but it's, oh man, it's from the perspective of the survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And they describe firsthand experiences with seeing the atomic bomb go off. And the explosion was bad enough, But nobody, that was the first time anything like that had ever happened. So nobody knew what radiation sickness was. Oh man, when it gets into that, oh man, it'll tear your heart out, because these people were kids when this happened. And they're showing their scars and drawings that they made when they were children of what they saw happening. It's horrifying. The thought of radiation really freaks me out. So now I have like an obsession with it where I watch documentaries about it all the time, and little YouTube videos and things like that. I can't get enough of it. I also had, I'm not sure if it's a fear or if this is just a personality trait, but I recently, going through this breakup and everything, made me realize or question if I'm not afraid of, it kind of goes into two of these other ones, these answers that I got on that question. If I'm not afraid of being alone myself, or if I'm afraid of not being good enough. I think this breakup really exposed that in me to myself. Because man, it really messed with me, and it wasn't, I've been in breakups before, and I think that the number one thing was thinking of them with someone else. And that's driving me crazy too. Like, thinking about her giving specific looks to someone else that she used to give to me, or, somebody else playing with her hair the way I used to, because she had like big, awesome Fran Drescher hair, and I used to kind of scratch her head through it, and I loved her hair. But just little things like that. But now it's more so like losing that partner that I had. And I, even though one of my best friends, my oldest friend, is here living with me, and I just, even when my daughter's here, there's just this feeling of loneliness because I've lost. It's like a best friend died. Like I'm mourning them. And so it's definitely a fear. I came to that in therapy, and I think it's a fear of losing people that I care about, or something happening to people that I care about. Not just care about, but that I'm very, very close to. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's more so the being alone part and losing that partner. That's what it is. I really do believe that that's what it is. Yep, that's what I'm afraid of. Wow. See, I was really excited to do this episode too. I was really excited because the engagement here was really nice. It was nice to feel. It was nice to feel like I'm connecting with my audience, and some of these people, the ones that I know so closely. It's like I got to know you a little more. Get to know things about you that I didn't know. It's really cool. But hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for liking. You guys are awesome. I can't tell you how grateful I am to see this channel grow the way it has, and I look forward to further growth that we're going to experience together. Thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next one.